Chapter 22. Name, Capricorn Anderson. The back door of the ambulance swung open, and there she was. She sat in a wheelchair that was anchored to the floor. She looked paler and thinner, but never better. Not to me. I hugged her. "Rain, I missed you so much." She hugged me back, then pulled away and held me at arm's length. "I see that. Have you been in a fight?" "I tried to stop one," I admitted. "I guess I've got a lot to learn about peacemaking." She nodded proudly. "Good for you. We always try to save the world, but sometimes the world doesn't want to be saved." She looked at me critically. "You're going to have 2 black eyes, you know." I grinned at her. "I'll take 4 black eyes if you tell me we're going back to Garland." "We're going home, Cap. I think the rehab center was glad to get rid of me. Some of my opinions didn't sit well with my fellow patients, like it's a crime to speak your mind." She beamed. "I insisted we come straight here to pick you up. I didn't want you to have to spend an extra minute in this awful place." "It's not so bad," I told her. "Different. Crazy. But there are good things about it, too." "You're a kind soul," she praised me. "But it's all over now. We just have to stop at Florimundi's and pick up your things." The EMS tech slammed the door and turned to Rain. "We've got to run the siren for a few seconds, or we're not allowed to pass the school buses. Nothing to worry about." The vehicle whooped and wailed off school property, then returned to making its silent way through traffic to the Donnellys. I ran into the house calling, "Mrs. Donnelly! Mrs. Donnelly!" I was anxious to share my good news with the lady who had been so nice to me. Sophie looked up from the depths of a Department of Motor Vehicles pamphlet entitled "Welcome New Driver." "She's at work, just like every other day. What's so important?" "I'm leaving," I told her. "Don't let the door slap you in the butt on the way out," she said, stifling a yawn. "When will you be back?" "Never," I replied. "Rain picked me up straight from the hospital. We're going home." She put down the manual. "No fooling?" She peered out the kitchen window at the ambulance parked in the driveway. "Sweet ride. Your grandmother's in there?" I nodded. "She can't come in. She's still not getting around so well. Do you want to go out and meet her?" "That's okay," she said quickly. "My mother's been telling me Rain stories for years. I feel like I already know her." She took in my swollen face and blood-splattered tie-dye. "Whoa. You sure that ambulance isn't for you?" I was embarrassed. "My nose started bleeding at school. I'm fine." "You look like you killed and ate a wild boar," she commented mildly. "Come on, I'll help you get your stuff together." It took barely a few minutes to fill my duffel bag and erase the fact that I'd ever lived in this house. I'm not sure what made me ask if I could have the Claveridge yearbooks. All that was behind me now, but studying them had become almost like a hobby. "Knock yourself out," Sophie insisted. "You're doing us a favor by making that stuff disappear." I wrote a note to Mrs. Donnelly thanking her for letting me stay there. I could have ended up in some kind of group home for all those weeks. I made sure to tell her that Rain was grateful too, since they had known each other. "I guess this is it, then," said Sophie. I paused at the TV, the only one I might ever get to watch trigonometry in tears on. "I can't believe I'm never going to find out how Rishon does in college." "Oh, he never makes it to college," she informed me. "He gets run over by a cement truck on the way to freshman orientation." I was shattered. "No!" She laughed. "I'm just pulling your chain. I'm sure he lives on to be a total basket case just like everybody else on TNT. He doesn't exist, remember? I'd say get a clue, but where you're going, you're probably better off without one." We exchanged a very awkward goodbye. I wished her luck with the driving test, and she told me to have a nice life. It gave me a special glow to note that she was wearing the bracelet she thought was a gift from her father. "It was real. It was fun. But it wasn't real fun," she called as I headed down the front walk. It seemed fitting that the last thing she said to me was something I didn't understand. I got back into the ambulance and we drove off. I knew I'd never forget Sophie Donnelly. "Next stop, Garland," Rain told me. I couldn't help myself from grinning, which made my nose hurt. It was about an hour's drive. It would have taken even longer, but the driver used his siren to open up some snarled traffic. I could tell the instant we turned onto the dirt road that led to the community. I had memorized every pothole and rut in that driveway, and they were all precious to me. The fact of returning hadn't become real until that moment. The ambulance stopped, and the attendants helped us out and up onto our porch. The first thing I noticed was that the duct tape had come off my Foucault pendulum. The bowling ball weight had fallen, cracking the floorboards. I took in the sights and smells of the only home I'd ever known up until several weeks ago. It looked smaller than I remembered it, and more used. The colors and textures seemed very bland compared to the warm and bright bricks and stuccos of the houses around Sea Average. I felt a pang of guilt for my disloyal thought. This was the greatest, most beloved spot on earth. If it looked a little run down, it was from all the weeks standing empty. Rain could always read my mind. The place is lonely. It missed us. Not half as much as I missed it.